why don't we get started, even though Kevin might not be here, but we'll call this meeting to order. The Marketing Task Force as of March 31st. How about that? A roll call, Deborah?
Certainly. Walker?
Here.
Bentley?
Here.
Bollinger?
Here.
Dowling is not here yet. Color?
Here.
Register? Here. Shaw?
Here.
And Nagai and Pranjali are excused.
So you have the meeting minutes from our March 10th meeting in front of you. Any comments or revisions? Seeing none, they are approved as submitted. Thank you, Deborah. Residents Forum, do we have any speakers?
We have one email submission to read aloud. This is by Barbara Coonan, and it's addressed to the Marketing Committee. She states, Rossmore Advocates for Diversity, otherwise known as RAD, would like to thank you for your work you're doing to develop the best ways to market Rossmore to potential residents. We support the development of the Rossmore website to better appeal to a wide base of prospective buyers. The website is a wonderful opportunity to highlight the diversity of Rossmore by featuring photos of residents of color, different ethnicities, and sexual preference. We urge you to do so and would welcome the opportunity to assist you in whatever way we can. Thank you. RAD Board.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Deborah?
That concludes.
Okay, thank you. So just a brief chair report. I don't know about you guys, but in reading this week's, welcome, Kevin. We're just getting started.
So is he.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
We can't hear you. Is that a function of us?
I hear him. Say something.
Hello.
Hello.
There you are. Good morning. So I don't know about you, but reading the agenda this week, I went, oh, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We've got a full agenda, but things are moving ahead very nicely here. So I think we're on target for our May 29th delivery to the board of our recommendations. So I appreciate all of you and the contributions that you're making. It really is valuable to our entire community. Thanks for flexing on the schedule. Some of you may know that tomorrow is the candidates forum for the GRF board, and that's why we had to move the meeting to today. So
actually, that's next week. This is our bonus meeting. The next meeting moves to the
Thanks
ninth.
for flexing on two meetings. You're right. You're right, Ann. Thank you.
Yes, Wednesday.
Kathleen, you're supposed to kick me when I do that. Due to schedules, Kathleen needs to leave early. We're going to move item C1 to our first item. So Kathleen, I'll turn it over to you on values and target audience.
Sure. So first off, thanks for everybody for your votes. Do you want to share? Okay, you are sharing it. Okay, so the other parts of the presentation are the same as we already saw. These are the 6 values that we collectively voted on. All of these received a majority, and several of them received a unanimous. So I move that we adopt these as the values for the community. Before we vote, I do want to say that we have an opportunity to make them a little more flavorful, if you will. If we want to put some extra language, either as a tagline connected with them or rephrase them in a different way, we can do that as a secondary. Yes?
May I ask for the record if you could read these values aloud?
Oh, certainly. Okay, connect in no particular order. Connection and community, fun, recreation, and lifelong learning, safety and security, beautiful surroundings, inclusivity and respect, independence and convenience.
So there's a motion on the floor. Does somebody want a second?
I second.
Okay, questions?
Just one real quick one. Is this kind of in the order of popularity, the way it came in, or is it just they accepted all of them and you just put them in there?
Actually, it is in conjunction. Yes.
I'd like to find out if it's possible to add
Roy, can you speak up, please?
Huh?
Can you speak
Louder?
up, please?
I'm sorry.
Can you talk louder?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'd like to know if longevity of the residents here can be added on. The reasons for it. Over 24.7% are over 85 years old. We have 118.
Roy,
100.
Roy, I don't mean to be rude, but you're only allowed to ask questions of clarification.
So I'm asking if the longevity
Thank
can
you.
be added.
Thank you.
Is that in two?
Well, let me, so values, as we defined it, are the behaviors that we would like for the community to engender. We would like to promote those behaviors, not outcomes necessarily. Does that make sense? So I think longevity arguably is an outcome. If you did these things, then it would promote longevity, but longevity, I think, is an outcome that would be out of our control. It's even the people who have longevity can't really commit to that behavior, if you will. So I think there's multiple ways to look at values, but and I think we would all agree that we would hold that as something that we care about, but it's not a behavior that anyone could instill or promote. Does that?
Longevity is something we also could put as part of our target audience. So when we're looking at residents, we could further break that down by age demographics so that you're capturing longevity within that target audience.
Or you could say something like promoting health and welfare and,
Longevity.
and longevity.
Yeah, in some of our content and things like that.
Yes.
Because we've already done the mission and
Right.
vision.
Right.
Any other discussion? So I don't like that they're numbered because people are gonna view that as priority. And then I think they should be bullet points. It's
Okay.
a small thing, but
Well,
so for example, I think independence should be one of the top things. Because when you look at our competitors, many times they say independence, but then they're continuing care facilities and it's not clear that we are solely an independent place, but nonetheless.
I was gonna propose that as a secondary step for this, so let's not view these maybe as the list is agreed on if we all vote on it. But then have mini discussions with each of you about any language adjustments that you want to do or add to it. Maybe we could also do the order in those discussions. I think it's difficult to have that kind of a discussion in a group. Trying to decide on language as a group is very difficult, and then we could maybe finalize that by the next meeting.
I would agree, but with this motion, I'd like to see bullet points rather than numbers because this will go to the planning committee.
So
It'll go
correct
to
me
the
if I'm
board.
wrong, Deborah, didn't she say in no particular order as part of the,
Yes.
so, and she didn't list them 1, 2, 3. So as part of the motion, it's just the list, right, and not the numbers.
Correct, it just says these values.
So they're not
It's
numbered.
not in order, it's not delineated.
Okay.
But going
Kind of
forward,
like
we
as
want the
Going
numbers.
forward, we will remove
Yes.
that. From the final deck, we will remove that.
Okay.
And then if everybody's okay with having little discussions with me over the next couple of weeks, or actually week. Yeah, maybe we won't finish it by next week then, we'll see. I have some language that I've gotten from some of you in your proposals, as well as things that I've looked up from other places. So we can either just decide to leave them as is, or we can add additional or tweak the language a little bit.
We'll put it on the agenda for next.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm finished, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, do we have to vote on that?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call, Deborah?
Certainly, Walker,
Yes?
Bentley,
Yes.
Bollinger,
Yes.
Dowling,
Yes.
Color,
Yes.
Register,
Yes.
and Shaw.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. It's nice to see election results that aren't rigged. Just, let's discuss the brand guide, Ann. And you did this in conjunction with a number of people that we need to
So
recognize.
I actually had very little to do with this. The brand guide was done by our two fellows and by Adriana. But since I'm the one here. I'll pick it up and run with it.
All right.
Okay, so let me share screen on this as well. All right, so just a quick recap. So if everyone remembers, what we've done up to this point is we've developed what our mission statement is and what our vision is for going forward. So now what we want to talk about is essentially what's our brand personality. So that brings us back again to our mission statement, which says who we are right now. Our vision statement, which talks about where we're headed. The values, which we're getting much closer to having established. And so the last part of the personality, and I'm fairly sure we're set now on our target audience being the prospective residents, the adult children, realtors, residents, and staff. If we're missing something in that, today would be the day to start bringing that up. So the last part of this is now brand tone. And really the tone is what we want to set throughout, not just for our brand identity, but this will also be what dictates the tone in terms of our marketing, our approach with our different target audiences. So obviously we want it to be welcoming and inclusive. That's a big part of our mission statement and our vision statement. So essentially Rossmore is a community where everyone feels at home. Educated and informed. This is also extremely important. We've talked numerous times about how some folks don't necessarily understand what Rossmore is. So it's our job as part of the brand and marketing to make that clearer. Motivational and supportive. We really want to encourage our residents to embrace the sort of next chapter of their life with optimism. I think a lot of us realize that we hear a lot right now about people being unsettled or not particularly happy with how things are going. So how we use our brand and how we market as part of that educational and informational part can also be very important in helping them to reestablish that optimism. And then vibrant and, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, do we need to take a fresh look at this, given the values that we just adopted?
We can absolutely take a fresh look
Okay.
at anything.
Okay,
Do you want to run through the whole deal and then come back and go piece by piece?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last part of the brand tone is vibrant and energetic, basically living sort of that dynamic life, reflecting really the active adult, active spirit that we have here in Rossmore. And then we get to visual elements. This is one of the things that's really important to me. I am a big believer that everything should be consistent, that our brand should have the same look across everything that we do. And so these would be the different logos that are part of our identity. So you have what most people are used to, your full color, your grayscale, your black and white. Those we're used to seeing. But what we've also adopted with the brand guide is if we were to have one full color, and we've gone with blue. That doesn't mean we can't go with green. We just randomly selected blue. So if the group thinks green would be better, we can certainly talk about that. And then the full scale if you had grayscale and black and white on the reverse. So those are our visual elements. Those are our logos. You can also see, obviously, the tree as its standalone is also very much Rossmore. So this is what that icon identity would look like. These are our brand colors. We do this on purpose. What we do as part of the brand guide is we put this out because there are different folks who are going to want to, especially the realtors, are going to want to market us. And so they need to know what's the color breakdown so that we get the right color. You'd be surprised. Blue, everyone gets right. Green is all over the map. I've seen Christmas green all the way to forest green. And then typography. This is important for two reasons. Again, consistency is one of them, but the other thing I've talked about quite a bit in here is the importance of making sure everything we do is accessible. We have a lot of residents in here who are low vision, so you want fonts that they're able to read. And as part of that, some of them are fairly simple, but just as an example, Helvetica is one of those fonts where you don't have a lot of curly cues on it. You don't have a lot of compact conciseness in it, so it makes it much easier to read.
Do you want questions at the end?
Yeah, we'll go back through. We'll go slide by slide. This is the mood board that the three ladies put together to, again, try to encapsulate what our mission and our vision is. So you see things like safety and beauty, having that active lifestyle. I'll say up front, this is just me, but it also ties back to our residents forum letter. I'd like to see a little more diversity here. It feels a little too white to me. But that again is something we could work on.
These photos you have here look like there's a fair amount of diversity.
There is, but I'm keyed in on who's really sort of front-facing,
Right.
and front-facing seems very white. Again, there's ways to work with that.
Yeah,
We can,
sorry, we'll talk about later.
yeah, we're gonna come back through, so. Imagery, again, you want things that are very rich, high contrast, those vibrant colors. We're gonna talk in a little while about Linda
Excuse me.
and Mike and I.
Excuse
when
me a
we were
second.
looking-
We can't hear. Thank you.
When we were looking through, Linda, Mike and I were looking through the websites, we talked about the fact that the websites that had these vibrant photos really stood out to us. And so that's something that's part of the brand guide as well. And then how you would apply this. So we would be looking at all of our signage and how we want to bring, again, our brand elements into those signs. Our apparel. In many ways, we already do this, but we're just sort of emphasizing all the different places where the brand would apply. Social media, which would be everything from Facebook to whatever else we might select to use. And then our messaging. And these, based on the conversations we have, these are what they've come up with for taglines and phrases. This is really where I think we're gonna have our biggest discussion points. But I'll run through it really quickly. And then, like I said, we'll go back to the beginning of the slideshow and walk through each piece. So they came up with as the main tagline, Rossmore, where life gets better. Community focused, a place to belong, a life to enjoy. Nature focused, surrounded by nature, connected to life. Lifestyle focused, less worry, more living. Activity focused, so much to do, all in one place. And then they talked about sort of your strategic target, your prospects. What is your messaging goal? To inspire and reassure them that Rossmore offers a fulfilling life maintenance and vibrant lifestyle. So here's a messaging example they came up with. Discover a place where every day is an opportunity, where friendships flourish, activities abound, and nature surrounds you. At Rossmore, you'll enjoy a vibrant, low-maintenance lifestyle designed for your next great adventure. Then the strategic target being adult children, and this is where you'll start to see how the message changes just a little bit based on who your target audience is. So the messaging goal, inspire adult children to consider Rossmore as a future home for their loved ones by highlighting its vibrant lifestyle, strong community, and peace of mind. Encourage them to recommend Rossmore to their network by emphasizing its safety, convenience, and enriching environment. So the example message, give your loved ones the best of both worlds, an active, engaging lifestyle with the security and convenience they deserve. At Rossmore, residents enjoy a thriving community, abundant amenities, and the freedom to live fully, while you gain peace of mind knowing they're in a safe, welcoming environment. Whether for your parents, relatives, or friends, keep Rossmore in mind for the future, or share it with someone looking for the perfect place to call home. Now our strategic target is realtors. So we're talking about equipping the folks who sell Rossmore with the right tools and incentives, essentially to position Rossmore as a top choice for their clients. So a message example, Rossmore isn't just a home, it's a lifestyle that sells itself with stunning natural surroundings, world-class amenities, and a thriving community. Rossmore is the ideal choice for active adults looking for more than just a place to live. Strategic target for our residents. Again, these are the folks who already live here. So it's about trying to encourage them to become really a part of our process, to be engaged, to strengthen their pride in the community, and to promote word of mouth referrals. So the message example, this is your place, your community, your home. Whether it's joining a club, exploring a new hobby, or simply enjoying the beauty around you, Rossmore is here to listen to your needs and make every day better. And our target, strategic target being staff, it's about reinforcing the values, fostering a positive workplace culture, and boosting engagement. So the message example here, you are the heart of Rossmore. Your dedication creates a welcoming, thriving community where residents feel at home. Together, we make Rossmore a place where life truly gets better. And then it's all about essentially finding a way to tie it all together. So there, you can have no design unless you have an actual brand strategy. That's what the brand guide is starting to walk you towards. It's really about kind of finding that foundation, creating that foundation that will allow us to build off of it so that, again, we can move forward. So now we're gonna go back to the beginning and kind of walk through this piece by piece to see if there's things that we want to change or if there's, comments, other things that we want to bring as part of this. So we'll start with brand tone.
Which page is that?
The one that's on the screen, sorry, after values.
So my comment on that one is similar to what, it's more of a general for the whole thing, is to take our values and to walk through it and make sure that the values that we have decided on are reflected. Because it's sort of like what should be front page, and some language supporting the front page should be there, and there might be other things that become back page. So without walking through it here, I think you and the team or whoever should go through that and see, oh, we don't ever talk about blah, blah, blah. Or gee, we are constantly talking about this one, but never about this one. So I think just has to be balanced.
Anybody disagree with that approach? And rather than trying to edit today, I think
Yes.
that would be the best way to send it.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Makes sense.
Do you want to keep going or do you want us to go back, take another crack and go
Other
for?
comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything else with brand tone before we move on?
I have a question.
Yes.
So we're Rossmore Walnut Creek. But throughout the presentation, we only say Rossmore.
I noticed
Is
that
that-
too.
But
That
is
was
that-
on my list of notes.
Is that awkward?
No, it does need to be Rossmore Walnut Creek.
Yeah.
Our brand is Rossmore Walnut Creek. That has to be emphasized throughout. So,
And my observation tied to that is we don't talk about what proximity to Walnut Creek, even though we're Rossmore, Walnut Creek, none of this kind of ties it in. Or,
There's a
So-
picture of downtown, but that's kind of it.
no, yeah, that's kind of it.
great. Anything else on brand tone?
I think we'll probably hit the Walnut Creek part on the website.
But it should be part of the brand guide
It should
too.
be
Amy's
the
right.
part of the brand.
It needs to be in there. Okay, so these are the visual elements. Really pretty much the only thing to talk about here is blue or green.
Blue.
Consensus, stay with blue? Excellent. All right.
It's too hard to do.
Actually, your point about
Yes.
green.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very- way
It's
too hard
many
to read.
greens. How about typography? Is there any issues that anyone has with the fonts selected?
Before we go off of the colors.
Yep.
Speaking as someone who's tried to use brand guides in the past, I think you need some secondary colors with instructions on how to use them. It's just that you do get yourself into, not you, yourself, but
Mhm.
the designers can get themselves into a situation where, oh, we have 4 things we need to identify and you've only given us 2 colors. So how do you support the occasional need for secondary colors? And you might as well put it in here or they're gonna, and how to use them or when
You're
to
right.
use them.
So in terms of secondary colors, do you want to stay within the blue and the green palette? Or do you want us to bring others in? I'm looking for sort of ideas so that when we come back with the next round, we're not totally off target from what you guys are
Just
thinking.
From someone who's used them in the past, I think they should be different. But you should be very, very clear that this is only to be used when you need to support it. In other words, you don't want t-shirts and stuff showing up in that
Mhm.
color.
Is that the consensus? Everyone on board?
That makes
All right.
sense.
Guys are making this easy. All right, so back now to typography.
Okay, so in typography, I don't have any problems with what you've chosen. But make sure that these are easily available in Word, things like that. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen Diva on a list. Helvetica, yes, but if you don't have Helvetica, do you use Aptos? Do you use Arial? So make sure that you have the cheap way, the cheap view.
Anything else about typography? Okay. Now we're getting to the mood board. I've already given my 2 cents, so I'll be quiet. Anyone else have any thoughts with what they see with the mood board?
Well, again, they should be tied in with values. We've already talked about that. I would agree, or one thing I noticed is a lack of Asian presence here, and I think we need to boost that significantly.
Like a what?
Asian.
Asian.
Roy? Yes. You have a question of clarification?
Question, can we consider that a tree? I think that's really beautiful.
Was that a question?
Yeah, I say, can we consider?
I didn't hear the question.
What's the question?
All right, moving on.
Anything else
Anybody?
about the mood
Oh,
board? Sorry, Dwight. Any other comments? Okay.
I don't hear.
Imagery. Does anyone think we should go different than the rich, high contrast, vibrant photos? Anything else that we should really include as part of imagery for the brand guide?
Just a comment, and these are the pictures that are here, I assume are stock photos.
They are.
And would we not use real?
We would use real,
Rossmore?
yes.
Okay. And then the picture of Walnut Creek is like so not Walnut Creek, you know,
You want a picture of like downtown or something like that.
positive,
Or
you know, but
Mount
we all know.
Diablo is a big.
Yeah.
I think one of the
Geo-
major draws to the area because is Broadway Shopping Plaza.
Mhm.
It's high, they've got high-end stuff there and it is, I don't have to go to the city to get that, you know, it's in my backyard. So I really think that we should not necessarily just have a big shot of Walnut Creek, but close to shopping, that, you know, tell people what they have. It makes it easy for them to live if they have to go out and do something. Maybe a shot of Locust Street with all the restaurants, with all the people bustling, you know, something like that, you know, close to restaurants, close to shopping. Those kind of the pictures of Walnut Creek, I think we should have.
Maybe
And
a
also-
shot of John Muir Hospital.
And
The fire station right outside.
But there should be
I was
a
gonna take
shot,
that another level, but I'll stop. Go ahead, Amy, I'm sorry.
should be a shot of Bart, because
Yes.
that takes you everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
we're
so
close to Bart.
just to be clear, this is just a brand guide.
Yeah, this is
The
just-
website is gonna encompass all of this. For the brand guide for imagery, you wanna give a selection, so I could see these photos and saying, instead of this, let's have this, instead of this,
Yes.
let's have that. So here's the next question. This is an important one. I have $25,000 in our budget for marketing. We are going to go to the board and we should be asking for some very specific things about how we want to spend that money. So one of the things I'm going to volunteer, especially to endear myself to my photographer who's sitting in the corner, is that we not ask Dan Rosenstraw to do 2 full-time jobs. That perhaps part of our recommendation is to use some of the money we have set aside for marketing to bring in a photographer to help with some of these photos. Again, I'm trying not to kill my employees.
And that's an operational item for you to figure out. But we
I
appreciate
just would
you.
like you guys to encourage that we go that direction. I have a feeling the board will take that,
Having
will
a
take
lot
your
of-
recommendation into heart.
Having some pre-approved sort of, you know,
Mhm.
B-shot on it, you know, B-roll or whatever for video, for photos and things, particularly if you can make some of that available to the outside world so that they can be consistent in the quality and what you're doing. I think it's a good idea.
And the other idea about imagery is it's inside of Rossmore and outside of Rossmore. Both of those things have to tie in together with all the imagery.
Mhm.
That's why having the same photographer gives you the same tone as well when we do that.
Exactly.
Okay, so applications, we're gonna talk in a little while about signs. So we don't have to get into the particulars of what you're seeing with signs here. But again, it's about making sure we're utilizing our brand, our colors, our typography, the names as part of our signage and with the vehicles.
So I have a question about that.
Yes.
So Are we converting all the signs and vehicles to Rossmore Walnut Creek?
So that's coming later in the agenda.
Okay.
Not to put that off, but just put it off a little.
Yeah,
This,
the big
this-
sign.
the signage, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, that's all.
This is going back to the typography, something that you probably should do is positioning and sizes relationships. So you might, when you create your typography or the place how to use the logo, is to look at it in different kinds of situations. So for here, we've got one in the middle, one on that's right justified, and then one that has, of course, none, which, so I think you might need to put a little bit more definition, because people will, in real life,
Sure.
will have more decisions to make.
Are you talking about consistency of where it's applied?
Yeah, because when you're applying it to different things, and you go like, oh, it doesn't fit,
No, I
now what do I
understand
do?
that. I mean, but
Yeah.
you're just saying consistency of where you apply it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and giving some direction to people, like,
Yes.
you would never want it to appear.
On your
so it's
bumper.
the big side, it's the same size, we always want it to appear smaller, or, whatever is. You can look at the actual applications and go, see what decisions people made,
Yes.
and then say, how would you do it different?
Right. Again, this is, the brand guide is teaching everybody how to do it, so that's a good idea, Kathleen. Apparel, kind of the same thing. As you can see, we're using the different logos. One is the full color, the other one's reverse logo.
Speaking of that, Ted is out of order. He only has the tree.
This was a logo on the back on one of the other pages.
Not the right
It's the
color.
icon,
It's not the right color.
but it's not the right blue. But again, we'll figure,
Is that
that's
blue?
part of that, or is it black?
Black.
Well, if it's
Could be
black, then he
blue.
is right, then he has the reverse
It's a
icon.
historical shirt, it's probably got a lot of value.
Yeah.
When it comes to, going back to apparel, this is one of the things, again, everything that we do, this brand guide will now be shared with our purchasing department, with our golf department, so that there's an understanding that whatever they're using in terms of logos, we have to relook at everything to be sure that it's consistent with whatever our brand guide is. And that will happen. Nothing is gonna, with all of this, with whatever comes out of marketing, nothing's gonna happen overnight. Everything is gonna get phased in, but it's the minute that the board says, yes, this is where we're headed, this is our brand guide, that's when we go to the departments and say, now going forward, everything ordered has to be this.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, James.
You said it goes to all like the golf shop and stuff. Some of our clubs put logos. Does this also apply to the clubs?
Yes, so what will happen is, once the board accepts the brand guide will be shared with everyone. The brand guide will go online, all the clubs, all the mutuals, everybody will be told, this is what we're using, this is what's available. A lot of clubs come to my department and ask for the logo. That's very smart of them, because then they get high resolution, which is a lot better to use on their clothes anyway. If they're doing that, then again, we have some control over the logo that they get and the logo that's being used.
So going back,
But
how would you use the logo with a subcategory? So let's say you want to say Rossmore Walnut Creek Trail Club. How would you approach that?
was that included in the brand guide?
I think you should either, and maybe even, again, I'm just thinking about having gone through this in real life. You might, if you see people making errors, you could put also, don't do this, with a little slash. If you see a common error.
Okay.
Would this affect clubs that already have names, like such as Rossmore Pickleball Club? Would they
No.
have to be called Rossmore Walnut Creek Pickleball?
No, again, we'll get to the branding name part later in the agenda. You're not looking so much at that. You're looking at more, if they were, for example, if Rossmore's Pickleball Club were to go to another community to play in a tournament, then they would say we're the Rossmore Pickleball Club from Rossmore Walnut Creek. So it's no longer just saying we're from Rossmore. And again, you want to get away from that because we're not the only Rossmore. And in fact, if you're doing a tournament down south, we're definitely not the only Rossmore. There's another one down south. So that's where you get, that's why we selected Rossmore Walnut Creek as the brand name, right? So that we're designating our location. But the actual club name, again, we'll talk about in a little while, how you can use Rossmore more as a nickname.
Okay, so just to be clear though, if you're talking about verbiage that you're putting in a flyer that would go out to the club or to the club who is down south or wherever the club is,
Right.
that's where that verbiage would go, but their logo would stay the same on
Correct.
their clothing, okay.
Correct.
So there's gonna be a guide rather than them having to come get approval from you.
Correct. Social media, this is something that my department will handle, so we'll make sure that whatever we select as the brand guide will carry through with social media. Messaging.
Just a question about social
Yes.
media. On this, you start following, you can start posting things on pages. How does that gonna?
We'll get to that.
Yep, that's next in the agenda too.
Okay, 'cause that-
We're going over everything
that could be
today.
worrisome.
Yes, we'll talk about that. So taglines and phrases. This was one that the group as a whole hadn't really started to talk about yet. So the three ladies just kind of pulled together something on the fly. I don't know that, I mean, we can certainly talk about ideas here, but I'm thinking that this might be one that would be best for our next meeting, which I realize is next week. So, but if maybe we could have folks think about what and come back with some suggested taglines and phrases so that we can really talk about what this should look like.
And I think this is by far tied into the values discussion.
Yes, absolutely.
And perhaps doing what Kathleen suggested and providing some more narrative around the values at our next meeting
Absolutely,
will then feed into taglines for the following meeting.
agreed.
Okay.
Does anyone else have anything sort of generally and broadly about this before everyone tackles this as sort of the homework?
Let's not do
Project.
that. Let's not do that,
Okay.
because that's
Just
an
like
hour right there.
Clarification on the homework. Can you do that?
Mhm.
Clarification on the homework is what Kathleen said. Look at the values and make sure that if there's any narrative that you think should accompany that it explains it better, that's what we'll be discussing at the next meeting.
I will reach out to everyone. And if we can put together, half an hour or something like that during the week or even the weekend, I'm open this weekend. And we can just have a discussion about it and I'll collect stuff. So we'll have a central place where we can bring ideas for language around the values.
People can email you too, I assume.
They can, but I think sometimes getting if you can't have a in-person call, then you can email me.
Amy and then Kevin.
So just one question is, so are we talking about the values having a tagline?
So the taglines would incorporate the values. You want your
That's what I'm asking. I mean,
Mhm.
are we saying those are the same?
Well, okay, so
I don't
the
know.
main tagline is just generally Rossmore Walnut Creek, blah, blah, blah. It would be used in headlines
Yes, I
or things
understand
like
that.
that. So that's different.
But all of these, they've
Well, I think
subcategorized.
that's for us to discuss.
Mhm.
So one option for the values is we just accept the values as written, and we don't put any other language around it formally. I'm a little bit like, about putting like lots of different taglines, that's a little bit over the top, I think. But having said that, there might be some language we would encourage for use in other kinds of messaging.
Right, and repeat, okay.
I think Kevin has a.
Yes, Kevin.
Just a quick comment. I saw a Rossmore employee on Friday with a new shirt with the tree Rossmore Walnut Creek. I was very excited.
You should have taken a picture, Kevin.
Okay, so anything else on taglines and phrases? Okay, so now we're at our strategic target, the messaging goal and the message example. Do we want to come back to this and again, go back and look, incorporate the values a little bit more into, okay. So unless anyone has a general comment or a general question, we're going to skip the last slides.
The only comment I had was at some point we said vendors were a target audience.
Yeah, that's true.
And
You want them added back in?
Well, so we have contractors and various outside people coming into Rossmore. Don't they need to know what our brand is and what our values are? What is
So the
what
question
test?
is, if they're a target audience, what role do we expect those vendors to play in delivering our brand? Do we expect them to do so? If so, then yes, they should be a strategic target.
Well, in my opinion, it's very similar to staff. We're asking staff to conduct themselves in a way that's works towards our values, and vendors should know the same, in my opinion. But maybe the task force feels differently.
We are a source of word of mouth.
Can't hurt to have them on the list and get them involved.
And maybe it's staff and vendors combined, I don't know.
I think they should be separate.
Yeah.
Staff is much more engaged.
Yeah,
Right.
I think staff needs to be, Kathleen's right, much more engaged than a vendor would. Any other comments on that? All right, then we're done with brand guide.
Wow, thank you. That's a big undertaking.
You have to get there.
Next is discussing Rossmore structures and services. This seems to be a content item for the website, but Ann, did you have some comments there?
Well, there was, this has come up a couple times, Mike has brought it up, so just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of, again, about how do we explain what Rossmore is, right? So this question has continually come up. It's one of our biggest challenges. So I just wanted to share a little bit about starting with how Laguna Woods does theirs. So Laguna Woods is similar to us. They are a Leisure World property. We were once a Leisure World property. So they have things like mutuals. They have a Golden Rain Foundation board. While they operate different from us, all I wanted to show you is kind of how they went about trying to explain who they are. Okay, so they started with sort of an About Us page, and this is their entry point in their sort of general, here's what Laguna Woods Village is. And then there's a little button that says detailed community information will then get you deeper in so that you can have this sort of bigger, longer structured document that really kind of tries to encapsulate the structure of how Laguna Woods Village operates. They also use these drop downs where you're able to see in sort of short bites, explanations about what are the housing mutuals and corporate members, who are they? Who's the Golden Ring Foundation Board? What is the village management service? Because that's what they do for staffing. And again, it does this, it tries to do this in very short, concise language. I'll say, we're gonna talk here in a moment about how we've attempted to do this in the past and the complications that have arisen because of that. Here's another part of what they've done on their website, again, to just sort of dive in a little bit more deeper. Who are the board members? Who, they're fortunate and they only have 2 mutuals. Who are the mutuals? Again, keep in mind, we have 23. So being able to describe that makes it a little bit more bulky when it comes to our website. But this gives you, again, just a little bit of an example of as they start to drill down each of the different pieces. So here's how their shared services and amenities work. And then they've included little buttons that will take you to the important documents, to the calendar, to the board videos, to the committees. We actually have a very similar structure right now with our website. You go on to any page, you're gonna see a lot of buttons that you can click that will take you deeper into the website for more explanation. The one thing that I'll say, one of the reasons why we put out the All Around Rossmore guide last year was because we found a lot of people would say, I couldn't find that on the website. That's part of what we're gonna address with the new marketing website, but there is so much information, we're never gonna be able to get it all onto the website. So there is still sort of that need, especially in here with where our demographic is right now with the residents, to still have something in writing. Okay, then I also want to show, I have one other one, our attempts so far to show the structure in Rossmore. This was done by our civility task force. And I'll start by saying they tried very hard. I don't want to seem like I'm dissing what they've done. So these are our sort of the past organizational charts that they've attempted. So this was one that used to be part of the newcomers binder, where they would say, what if something's broken, where do you go? And then here's what the mutual does, here's what GRF does, trying to distinguish out the differences between the mutuals and GRF. It's a written form, so you really have to get people to invest in reading it, which they didn't always do. And then the second part to this that the Civility Task Force came up with was to do an organizational chart that would say, here's everything that falls under Golden Ring Foundation. Here's everything that fell under MOD and what they did. And here's all of the things that the mutuals did, Waterford being a little bit separate from the group. Again, very text driven, but at least this made it a little easier to just sort of say, oh, okay, I didn't realize that pest control was MOD. I thought that was our mutual. So again, these are two of the past examples. How and what we do to really explain what Rossmore is probably could be its own task force, honestly. This was just kind of to give you an overview that we have attempted this in the past and we have not quite hit on what the answer is yet.
Well, and don't you think it's something different on the marketing website versus what's on the resident website? And those two teams should be thinking about that, but I don't think we want to dig any further into this today unless the task force feels differently.
My one general comment would be that this is an iterative process. And maybe you start with what you think is the best, but assume that every few months after you learn how it's used, that you just assume that you're going, so don't invest in a lot of like full color things and stuff like that. And then you'll probably never get to a point where you will get no phone calls.
But I have to say, I like the chart approach and with some perhaps verbiage like news down south, and then this illustrates it. I think that's a good approach. Because it's, for somebody just walking in the door that has no clues, never seen this before.
Right.
It's really confusing.
All right. Anything else on this topic? All right, Kathleen, thank you. I know you have to leave.
Yes, I do. I'll call everybody or send you an email, see if we can set up some time.
Great, thank you. Marketing website.
All right, back to me. Let's see here. Okay, so Mike, Linda, and I met to talk about what we were gonna come into, sort of the broad group here, design and content recommendations for the marketing website. Things that we saw that we liked and we thought could be a good sort of starting point for how we do our own marketing website. One of the things I'll say up front is we don't want to go in with a set list that says, this is what we want, stay in the box. Whoever comes on board as our marketing website developer is gonna have far more knowledge about what works right now than we do. So we wanna give ourselves some fluidity and flexibility with that, but we also wanna make sure when we're putting together our request for proposals that we're getting a marketing website developer who's in line with our vision. So this is really about trying to determine what the foundation is for our vision.
So we looked at over a dozen different senior community websites and picked some of the best things from each one of them. And there were some pretty spectacular things we thought that would really enhance ours, so.
Were those the websites we all looked at last time?
Yeah.
Yes, we did pull in
Couple more.
a couple other ones that had come up as part of the social media presentation. So these again are just some of the things that we really liked. In terms of the overall marketing website objective, we believe that it's about leading our users down the path of getting a tour. We want to get them into Rossmore. So we're thinking a short introduction video or the sort of motion pictures, possibly no audio. The three of us thought that opening it up and having music blare at you right away or narration blare at you right away could be very off-putting, so we thought maybe no audio. And then tab to that longer welcome to video, but it would be located a little bit more further down the homepage. We also talked about how we want this to be very visually driven with the 360 virtual tour videos, those video vignettes, which again are your sort of quick 30-second, 60-second videos of people having fun. We want the photos to be bright and colorful. We were divided, our opinion was a little divided over how much to emphasize home ownership. I'll let Linda talk a little bit about why she thinks the marketing website should do a better job than our current website in terms of home ownership.
Just as someone who advertises on the website and also is pretty, I guess, referred a lot, clients a lot, a lot of people don't know after going to the website that how you live here. They're still asking the question, which I would like to see at least some level of them understanding from going to the marketing website that this is a home ownership prospect for them. And that if they want to rent, that's an individual thing that they have to pick up with different owners, that everything's 100% owned and purchased within Rossmore, because I just don't think people completely understand it. They're still asking for apartments. You know, they're still trying to find out if agents can get them or whoever they call can get them a place to live in Rossmore, not understanding what it is. So I think there's got to be some component or explanation of this for people to understand that they purchase.
I think that's very important. But Kevin, go ahead.
I was in an Uber recently, coming into Rossmore, and I was talking about Rossmore. He said he has relatives who live here, and he said, "Oh, I thought there was a waiting list to get into Rossmore." What? Waiting list? What?
Well, that's a good thing. Maybe we should do a fake waiting list. But you know, a lot of 55 plus communities are apartments. They are rentals.
Yes,
And so I think that's a very good point. That we need to be clear. This is home ownership.
And continuing care is also a different version of living in a place like this.
Yes.
Right? So you buy in and then you can they move you actually. As you need more care, that can be an option.
Yeah, don't we talk about Waterford? Any?
It is on the website.
Okay,
There's.
But I mean-
Waterford.
for a new one.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Conversely, Mike had talked about really feeling that especially the homepage experience, though, should be driving more to what the mission and the vision statements are, which is more about that active lifestyle, safety,
Sounding
security. Yeah, so how we balance that in, and again, this is where we could rely on a marketing website developer expert to say, we want this is an important piece, but we also understand this is our mission and our vision, so how do we marry these two?
Laguna doesn't have any information about the home info until you press a button up at the top that says sales. The rest of it's completely lifestyle, which to me makes sense because people aren't coming here to buy a 50-year-old condo with a $2,000 a month homeowner dues. They're coming here for the lifestyle.
And we do a similar thing with our website now, and I will admit that I put a lot of our SEO value and our marketing dollars behind our real estate and homes information page on the website. It is a one-click from the top to get there, but I like the way Laguna Woods does that, where you're really kind of making that home ownership, home living aspect very front and center, just because again, you don't want people to have to dig too deep. We'll talk in a minute about what we call the 2-3 click experience.
Yeah, you sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Exactly.
But then you can make that, when they go to that page, you can make it very robust with a 360
Exactly.
degree.
Exactly, that's when you dig down.
Right,
Yes.
and you really show them what we have here to live in,
Yeah.
to buy in.
And could we just that question, if
You
we could
bet.
go back to the Laguna Woods page.
This one.
It says guest passes. Can you explain what that is?
I can. So guest passes, Laguna Woods uses Dwelling Live, which we also use. And what they've done is they've created a link that takes you into the Dwelling Live website so that residents are able to do their guest passes online. So that you don't have to call or email our public safety office in order to get your guests in. I will emphasize that we wouldn't put ours, I don't know why they've done this, but they've done it their own way. We wouldn't put ours on the marketing website. Ours would go on the residence portal. That's where it belongs, because it's confusing. Right now, you think, hey, I can come in and be a guest of, no, you can't. So when we do ours, and that's, some of the decisions are gonna be made from an operational standpoint like that, where we wouldn't come to the marketing task force and say, what do you think? We just know that it makes the most sense to put that with something like the residence portal.
So, just to finish off what I was gonna say about this is there is, a button in a lot of these that say, get here or live here. And we decided we wanted everything to be at least 1 to 2 clicks away informationally, so that there's no digging in menus for people. So that's kind of what I envision is once you sell them lifestyle and you gotta do it quick, you gotta have a get here or live here or some kind of real quick way to let them know so they don't start wandering around trying to figure out where it is.
Okay, so the next thing we talked about was the photo gallery. And again, falling in line with what our values are. So especially showing, again, the idyllic natural settings, the activities. You can use a carousel approach, which means that you come on the website and for maybe 10 seconds, you're seeing the same 5 photos, and then it scrolls through and now you get 5 more. That means every time you come in, your experience is a little bit different, but it's able to showcase a little bit more of what Rossmore has.
And the one lower corner picture, I'm not sure if that's depicting something that I'm not gonna get away from when I leave my house and come here, or is it that they have their own maintenance crew? So I'm trying to figure out what,
Or you can.
I'm not sure that's a good picture.
This is just an illustration.
I don't wanna do that anymore.
Yep, just an illustration.
But I like the moving pictures much more than the stationary ones. I think they're very boring.
So on a marketing website, people not only want to know the lifestyle, they want to know what the accommodations are like. So what do we do to market the various homes that can be lived in?
I think we're coming to that. I think that's in here.
Okay.
Let's go a little
I
bit
missed it.
deeper. Okay, so then we also like the tiled approach on the homepage in particular that gives you that quick, oh, I want to find out about events or dining options or home options or the different activities. And as Linda mentioned, what we mean by that 2 or 3 click experience is that if you were to click on dining, for example, it would take you automatically to a page and that's it, there's 1 page. Or again, if you're looking at activities, then you may go to a page where you see more tiles where it's like, do you want sports? Do you want, games? Do you want social clubs? Click on it and now you get a page that allows you to drill down pickleball, golf, table tennis, etc. But again, trying to keep it to 2 to 3 clicks. What ends up happening oftentimes is you get people to start clicking through the website and they're like, oh no, I don't know how to get back there. I want to get back there. One of the things I personally like that one of the websites did is that the menu bar goes down the page with you, no matter where you are on the page, that's always there. So if you want to get yourself out, you don't have to use the back button. You can just go right to the menu because it's still there. Okay, this one, we really liked how Laguna Woods did the About Us page and their FAQ. It really helped to explain how Rossmore operates and how they're governed. But we did emphasize that whatever we do, we want a simple layout and the explanation should not confuse buyers more than they're confused now.
I like the map on that page too. I think that's a good added piece.
Yeah. We also loved the testimonials. And if you remember when we talked about the last marketing website conversation, we talked about how there were 2 entry points in, right? One for I'm here for myself, the other one I'm here for loved ones. That goes back to the target audience where you have your prospective buyers and the adult children. And what we thought is that we could use this as a way for our testimonials. So we could have testimonials from Rossmore, little videos about what brought them here for the I'm here for myself section. And then we could talk with adult children about why they selected Rossmore for their loved ones. That would help us to hit those 2 different target audiences. For the About Us page, Mike talked about including the facts about Rossmore page that's in the All Around Rossmore guide. That's sort of that quick look. We might make this look a little more professional, a little less graphic,
cartoonish.
yes, a little not so cartoonish, but a little more in line with everything else we're doing. And then to take a simple approach to explaining the different housing types. So I pulled one from Leisure World of Maryland. These are just quick, here's what a co-op is, here's what a condo is, here's the homeowners association. Again, keep in mind that most people who are on a website, they're looking for that quick look. They're not looking to read the New York Times. So you want to get in and out as quickly as possible with your information. Here's the housing types. So emphasize again that you're buying into Rossmore, not renting. You want to make the buyer's information more prominent. So our models, our floor plans, the process, the rules and policies. This gives you, these are 2 different websites, but this gives you kind of an example where you can say, okay, do you want to see what this model looks like? Click here. And the little box that you see on the right-hand side, this is just a quick real estate signs and open house gate policy. Here's our process. So using sort of those quick snippet and again, pull them deeper into the website in order to give them more of this information. I will say this is going to be one of the more challenging sections that we're going to have to build. Not only do we have 23 different mutuals, so 23 different sets of CC&Rs and policies, we also have 182 different models. Even one model can have 3 or 4 different variations. We don't even have all of the floor plans digitized. So this process is going to probably be the most time-consuming process for staff to have to put together.
We're not
But it's also
putting every
important.
one of those in there.
That, and again, that's what we're gonna have to,
So-
honestly, staff is gonna have to sit down and figure out what is the best, because again, overloading a website is a terrible idea. It's gonna get us right back to where we are right now. So probably what we'll do is we sit down and say, okay, what is sort of your bigger overall model? And you can say in fine print, this is one variation, but really kind of try to key in on the main model, the main floor plans. One thing we also talked about, and this is something that I've wanted to do for quite some time, rather than force everybody off of our website to go find actual listings, I want to bring the MLS listings onto our website. It costs money, but it's worth doing.
But won't each of those listings, when you do that, have a floor plan?
Yes.
So we don't need to show all the floor plans. People will see the ones on the MLS.
That
We
are
just need some-
available.
That are available.
We just need
And
some examples.
that's the bigger problem. What we need to do again is work more in tandem with the real estate agents to be sure that they have access to all of those floor plans, that they have access to all of the model information. I hear a lot, I mean, I get things into the info@Rossmore email all the time where they'll say, what models do you have that are 2-bedroom? I'm like, I have no clue. I could sit and scroll through all these floor plans, or I can just say, talk to the realtors. But I also know that sending them to the real estate agents are saying, I know what I've sold, or I know what I have in hand. But again, this is sort of that next, I will tell you, this will be phase 2, where we really need to drill down and talk about the property end, which is something we haven't done in the past.
If I recall from the MLS website that we're going to link, there's a search function and you can put 2-bedroom in there and it'll show
Exactly.
you all the ones that are available.
Which is another way, again, it's another avenue to
Right.
take them down that will make it a little easier.
Linda, yeah.
Can I just add that the model is not always known to agents because there's no restriction on who sells in Rossmore, so they could completely, and the actual model art that shows what it looks like, those are not gonna be available to many, many people. It now is becoming through AI available through photographers, but if you have to pay for it, some agents may not. So there's a lot of information you may not get, especially since we have a diversity of people selling in Rossmore and they're not including model. So it's just something to think about.
Do you think it's important that our marketing website have every model in Rossmore?
No.
In my opinion, I think, like you
what's
said, just link to the MLS of what's available.
Yeah.
Because
But
I
we
think
may
that-
wanna do Sequoia, Sonoma,
Yeah, some
the main
examples.
condos. And then you could say, because there's one that if it's electricity, they have electricity only. If they aren't flat on the ground and not over a parking structure, they're the same layout, but they have a different name, Claremont's and everything. May wanna just have that information. I mean, you would be surprised at how much traffic it will generate. And I think that's something we should think about. It
And
generates
the other thing
traffic.
from an educational standpoint, it may not be a part of the website, but I do think that it's important that we're getting this into the hands of the real estate agents so that they have as much as possible to be able to answer these questions. We've made the decision, I mean, we don't know yet what the resident ambassador program will look like. We're gonna find out more about what Kevin and Maxine have done on April 9th, but recognizing that we've made the decision, at least initially, that we're not taking that in-house, we're gonna rely on the real estate agents. I said this at the beginning of the marketing task force, we should partner better with them and make sure they have all of the information they need to help sell us. But you're right, Dwight, not everything has to be on here.
By the way, because it's hard to figure out what is going on in Rossmore, people are using AI, I'm sure. I do, just to see. So that's something to test against, I think, is ask AI, how do you live in Rossmore? You know, ask it a lot of questions and see what it answers. And then you'll kind of find out, because AI is all language-based, if you're getting it right with the priorities and the language, it should be spitting it back out in AI for you, so ChatGPT.
Fact
Yep, that would be
FAQ
part of the
section.
FAQ section.
Yeah.
up
Mhm.
above general information.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we also talked about marketing website content, and we felt like this should really be built around the mission and the vision statements. Values will get built into each of these individual ones, but going off of mission and vision, we felt like the things to emphasize were activities and events, home ownership, low maintenance, health/proximity to medical care, safety/gated community, social clubs, all rolled into one, location, not just Walnut Creek, but Bay Area, and the idyllic natural setting in terms of content. And that's it for the.
my only comment there is we need to be careful on health, because we don't offer health services, but I think we just need to be careful.
I
how
think we
say
have to
that.
be more transparent about that too,
Mhm.
about the fact that we don't offer that, we do not offer assisted living, but that we are within close proximity. So it could be a page, but it should be a page that's included.
But maybe a different word that means health. Well-being
Mhm.
instead of health, because that
Right,
has a different connotation.
yes, yeah, and it ties into services that we offer.
Correct. And well-being isn't guaranteeing you health.
Right.
Could be teaching you to meditate.
All right, anything else on this? Thank you guys for all that work. This is obviously a work in progress.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes.
Oh, one other thing that our group had talked about, again, work in progress, it really is. So I'd mentioned earlier that we really kind of need to wait till we have a marketing website developer on board before we know sort of what are the common trends now, where do they think that we should take this. So one of the things we talked about was that we do feel it would be important to emphasize to the board that we could see bringing back a small group, working group, to work with whoever we select as the website developer to be sure they stay on point with what we're looking for.
Great. All right, next is resident portal. Ann, are you still up? I believe
I
so.
believe I am still.
I'm like half the agenda today. All right, so in terms of the residence portal, at the last meeting, I was asked to go back and try to find out what we were looking at in terms of timeline, cost, staff resources in order to get a resident portal going. And one of the things that I hoped that we would have answered in the next couple of weeks was whether or not we would be using a resort management system called Agilicis. which, as I mentioned at the last meeting, gives you those different self-service pieces so that you can do golf tee times, you'd be able to make reservations, buy tickets, similar to what you can do now with My Rossmore, but expand it out a little bit more. Unfortunately, I am not going to know that. The company is still trying to do the demo script for reservations. It's very complicated. So we aren't going to have that answer. So what I'd like to do is wait until next week's meeting. And what I'll come back is with the 3 different approaches. So if Agilistus doesn't work out, what's plan B? If plan B doesn't work out, what is plan C? Because I've mentioned before, we have been spending about 18 months now trying to figure out the residence portal. It is the most complicated piece that we have, largely because I can't find a single community out there that has figured this one out. No one's hit the nail on the head. I wish we could, because then we could turn around and market it to everybody. We could make a fortune. But without that being there, again, next meeting, I will have those 3 different approaches so that at least you can see what the path forward will be. It's kind of like choose your own adventure. If this happens, then we go down this road. If this happens, we go down. So again, I'll explain that at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ann. So I'd like to just move an agenda item. Let's talk about number 5, rebrand names, a follow-up discussion before we go to social media.
That's me too.
Yep.
All right. So the other thing that the group had asked, let me zoom in on this puppy.
Yeah.
No one's going to be able to see that.
Thank you.
All right. So one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was trying to figure out the cost associated with rebranding. If we went with Rossmore Walnut Creek for external marketing and we went with Rossmore as internal. I know that Dwight and I have a difference of opinion on this, but I want to throw this out. I think we really need to be Rossmore Walnut Creek, whether we're outside the gate or we're inside the gate. I think that that's our brand name. Part of the reason for that is that we don't want to confuse people. That's part of what we started this with, is all the different names that we have. Oh, we're Rossmore, we're Golden Rain Foundation, we're GRF, we're the mutuals, and it confuses people. And one of my concerns is that we don't want to reach that point where we're still dealing with confusion. I would instead see Rossmore as the nickname. It's what happens in here now. Very few people say Golden Rain Foundation Board. It's GRF Board. You go with a nickname, right? Most people, even if we're Rossmore Walnut Creek, are going to call us Rossmore, especially if you're a resident. Your official name, you're doing business as, is Rossmore Walnut Creek. Rossmore becomes more informal. Here's another reason. As I started to dig around, one of the things we talked about was if we rebranded the Mutual Operations Department as Rossmore Property Management. Isn't that less, that's more in tune with what it actually does and explaining it? Well, it turns out somebody already has Rossmore Property Management down south. The Rossmore down there's already a company that has that name. So again, this is where I keep coming back to that location is important in describing who we are, in saying we're not talking about any other Rossmore, we're talking about in here. So officially, it would be Rossmore Walnut Creek Property Management Company, but we would all call it Rossmore Property Company. Same thing, it's the Rossmore Walnut Creek Board, but everyone's gonna call it the Rossmore Board or the Rossmore Community Board. I'm just saying from an actual official standpoint, I really think that we should stick with Rossmore Walnut Creek. Now I'll let Dwight, if you differ.
Well, no, it's just a different way to look at it. One of the concerns that Ann and I talked about is that we have the Rossmore Fund, we have the Rossmore Scholarship Fund, we have the Rossmore Life Council wondering about how do we differentiate the nickname Rossmore from these other organizations? How do we make sure that we differentiate between the mutuals and what currently GRF, or I'm going to say the RWC board, RWC, I think, different acronyms will take place. So one of the thoughts that I just threw out was maybe we should be using Rossmore Community Board, Rossmore Community Property Management, that is a differentiation from what the mutuals cover. It's the community at large. I'm not totally sold on it, but it's a thought that I think we need to think about. And what other things does it talk about? Right? Think about all the things that we talk about right now. The GRF portion of the coupon, nobody understands that. the mutual portion of the coupon. Changing the name, will that affect that? I don't think so. GRF assets versus mutual assets, GRF responsibilities versus mutual responsibilities. Is this an opportunity to create more of a differentiation and identification? I don't know. How far does this go? Right now, employees, it's apeterson@rossmore.com. Should it be apeterson@rossmorewalnutcreek.com? apeterson@rwc.com? I mean, in order to fully implement a brand name, you've got to think of every way that it's impacted.
And that's why this chart is so incomplete, because it has to really start with what is determined with this group and then ultimately determined by the board as how you want to do that branding. Because again, if you make it Rossmore Community Property Management, right now, all of the fleet vehicles say Rossmore Walnut Creek. So all of those would have to be changed. If it's Rossmore Walnut Creek, none of them have to be changed. So email
They should say
things.
property management.
And again, that's what has to be determined. That's why I'm saying you can look at this, and right now I can tell you there's no cost associated, but in many cases, it's like there could be because we just don't know until we determine what the brand name is going to be, what this could all look like. One thing I will say, yes, the sign outside the front of the gate, you're probably gonna need to invest about 10,000 in it to literally pull that sign up and start all over again. The reason I'm saying it's not just a simple add Walnut Creek to it, they don't have the right colors. So if we're going to adhere to our brand guide, you gotta start over with that
And
sign.
it could be nice to upgrade it a little, make it a little more modern. But my point about branding is it's gotta be consistent. I don't care what we choose,
Yeah, from my retail experience,
Yes, you have to.
everything needs to be the same.
everything.
I'm sorry,
All my website
Kathleen's not here
experience.
to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's all gotta be Rossmore Walnut Creek.
Well, I don't care what it is, but it's gotta be consistent, period. We can't be inside, outside, here and there. We've got to be consistent because that's your messaging.
And some of it's gonna take time for people to get used to it and change.
Yeah,
Eventually, it might be the Rossmore Walnut Creek Community Fund.
They're not gonna change their name, and I wouldn't ask them to, but
I don't care
we
as
just need
long
to be
as it's
aware,
consistent.
Rossmore Walnut Creek is a mouthful, so that's not gonna happen. So then, is there something like RWC that gets adopted as the acronym or the?
I think people will still call it Rossmore. I don't think that's gonna change, but I think officially it has to be.
Rossmore Board,
Well,
the Rossmore Finance Committee, what does that mean?
I think you've gotta have Walnut Creek on all of those,
And people aren't gonna say Rossmore Walnut Creek.
and that's okay. They don't have. As long as-
It's okay.
Informally, the way that you talk is oftentimes different from how to, I mean, if you look at, there's a number of companies that have these unwieldy names, and then it's like Nike. Or Apple, right?
Yeah.
They don't go for the whole fold. You do live in a world where verbally a lot of things is
Are different.
Shortcuts,
informal,
right.
right? You use more the nickname.
The written
But
word and the
from-
verbal word.
Right, when you're talking about the contracts, when you're talking about signage, when you're talking about those kinds of things, that's where you might oftentimes see more of the full brand when you're trying to push your brand.
I'm trying to think of what the residents will use, but let's go to Linda and then Ted.
Well, I guess my question is, do we own or can we own the trademark?
Right now, we are registered for Rossmore Walnut Creek. That is ours. We're the only ones
which
in
is-
this county that can use it.
We're DBA, right?
Yep, that's our
Yeah.
DBA.
Yeah, but I mean,
We can't own Rossmore, I asked.
okay,
We can't own it because too many other properties have incorporated it into their
City.
name. If we were gonna do well, it's the city down south, yes, but if in this county, we really technically are the only Rossmore. The problem is, so many others have adopted it. Rossmore Realty, Rossmore Renovations. Yeah, there's a lot that have already built that into the name, so you cannot use Rossmore as you're doing business as. You could potentially do Rossmore Community if you wanted to go down the path of having doing business as names. If you do that, you now need 2 organizational charts. One that tells you what uses Rossmore Walnut Creek, one that tells you what uses Rossmore Community. Keep in mind, when we then go, because a big part of what comes after all of this, once we've determined this, is educating our community and communicating with our community. It's gonna be very important in those cases, 2 names, 2 communications plans. That's what this would mean. What I need to know before we go to the board, because it's gonna be important to tell the board, because we want to rebrand in this way, this is what the cost estimates are gonna be. These are the changes that need to be made. So we do need to make a determination, probably by next meeting. Are we going to be Rossmore Walnut Creek across the board? Or are we looking at these 2 distinct buckets? Because it will completely change this chart.
I have a comment
Ted
about.
was next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm not, I like Rossmore Walnut Creek. It identifies as Walnut Creek and we're in Walnut Creek. I think that that isn't a mouthful and I don't think it's too tough to do. But no matter what we come up with here, someone's gonna change it and roll it out of their mouth in a certain different way because it's more comfortable for them. So as long as the acronym doesn't spell out something that's obscene, we are in good shape. But I think that we should pick something that tells us what we are. I used Rossmore Walnut Creek on my last trip last week when I went down to Cambria on the pickleball courts to someone and they knew exactly what I was talking about. And they says, oh, I have a friend that lives there and I know it, and I'm gonna stop and see him on my way back to Utah or whatever they spend time in Cambria. But I think that we should pick something and not worry about all this other stuff because they're gonna change it. It might come out RWC or.
And Amy will come right back to you. But yes, that's exactly what we need to think about. Because think about how we use GRF right now. GRF is used everywhere in the community. And when you come in, you don't know what the heck that is. And even when you hear it's Golden Rain Foundation.
You don't even know.
It took me a while to figure out MOD when I first moved in.
Well, yeah. So you do need to think about what the nicknames that will be used. In the newspaper, we say, who's running for the GRF board? We don't say the Golden Rain Foundation Board.
Yeah.
So RWC, and by the way, I like it. I think that's the way to go.
Obviously.
But RWC becomes the vernacular that the community would need to adopt. It's no longer the Trust Estate Fund. It's the RWC Capital Fund.
Yeah.
It's no longer all these other wacky names that we've got rolling around. It's RWC blah.
But my point is, we are going to have all these little changes that'll happen to it. What I think that we're getting into all what could possibly be is not what we need to do. We need to find the identifying name, and then this other stuff is going to happen, whether we want it to or not.
But Ann is asking where we want to go,
I
so
think
that she can identify cost.
I think is that what we ought to do.
Let's hear Amy before we.
Well, I was just going to voice what Ted just said.
Oh.
You cannot control the nicknames and what people say and do inside the community. I think we can push stuff out there. I think our role is to, like Ted said, have the messaging consistent and what it is. But if there are nicknames or acronyms or whatever, to me, that's secondary to what we're talking about here. We can't worry about the nickname or the acronym at this point. That's my personal opinion.
Linda?
Just from a trademark standpoint, it needs to be ownable and defendable. That was what my question was about. I would hate to see you put it on all the trucks and everything else and have someone say, look, that's way too close to what we use. You guys have to stop using it. And I don't know if that would come up, but I do know that some people change their name because somebody tried to charge them licensing fees for names, so that's.
We own it.
Okay, so if we own it and we
We are
can defend
registered
it.
in Contra Costa County. No one else can be Rossmore Walnut Creek for 5
Do
years.
we have a trademark on it though?
We do not have a trademark. Again, you're gonna run into problems. You can't trademark Rossmore. You can't trademark Walnut Creek. You can register as it, but we cannot actually trademark that name because you can't trademark a city name. So if Walnut Creek is part of our brand name, we
Yeah.
cannot
Remember,
trademark
you
it.
talked about that at the beginning.
Yes.
I remember.
But again, that's why you register. If you register it, nobody else out here can now turn around and become Rossmore Walnut Creek Real Estate Company. You can't do it. We own that. We are registered for it. If they tried to do it, we would get alerted and we would be allowed to say no. Rossmore Walnut Creek Property Management, we get alerted to that. We're like, oh yeah, they're us. That's the difference for registration purposes.
Rossmore Walnut Creek News. Hello. All right. It gets wordy. I mean, we need to.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't.
Yes, yeah.
And again, that's why again, you take a list like this, right? And you're looking and you're like, okay, in this, everything is Rossmore Walnut Creek, but are there cases and instances where we want to use and keep the nickname? Do we want all of our emails to become rossmorewalnutcreek.com? They're already known as rossmore.com. Do we really want to confuse our residents? Probably not. That's a case where you might say it makes more sense to stay with this. We haven't gotten back to this, but after we kind of do the straw vote to decide, is it Rossmore Walnut Creek? The next question is, do we want to go back to, we started talking about, do we want to explore the possibility of purchasing rossmorewalnutcreek.com for the website? I will tell you that the person who owns Rossmore, so it would be www.rossmorewalnutcreek.com, wants $5,000 to give up the name.
It's not bad.
It's not.
It's
It's not
bad.
terrible.
Not terrible.
I've had people buy trademarks from me before.
But before I go down the road of actually exploring that, again, we need the straw vote here. It needs to be a recommendation to the board. The board has to adopt the brand name. Once it's adopted, then I will go back and get hard figures on everything.
So I'm gonna go beyond a straw vote. Do we have a motion to adopt Rossmore Walnut Creek? Ted?
I'll make a motion that we adopt Rossmore Walnut Creek as our
Brand.
brand name.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? No. All right, roll call.
Walker,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Bollinger,
Yes.
Browning is excused, Color,
Yes.
Register. Yes. Shaw is excused, it's unanimous.
And we should buy Rossmore Walnut Creek.
Definitely.
Again, I can't do it till the board adopts the brand name. We don't want to, we're putting a little bit the cart before the horse, just in case they come back and say no. I don't think they're going to, but I'm just saying in case they did. We don't want to be stuck with a website that we don't need.
All right. Before we go to social media, let's look at the last item. Ann put together a working outline draft. And we're not meant to edit this today, but it's food for thought as to the deliverables that we want to have on May 29th. What I'd like you to do is think about that for the next meeting, actually the next 3 meetings.
Do you want me to bring it up? Do you want to go through the items?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so this was just to kind of give us a starting point for the final marketing report. These are based on recommendations that have kind of already been made as we've been going forward. We're just trying to put them in a nice little orderly fashion. So the first one being to make rossmore.com a marketing website focused on the prospective residents and their adult children as the target audience. And that if the board was to adopt that, then we would develop an RFP for a marketing website developer. And again, as we talked about earlier, potentially having a small working group that would work with that developer. The second one is to move all of the residents' content to a resident portal and continue to work on the redesign for myrossmore.com, focused really on residents as the target audience. The third one is to adopt the brand guide and develop an FAQ that's consistent with messaging that would be distributed to the local real estate agents and incorporated into the websites. This would also go to staff, it would go to vendors, it goes beyond, but really that initial starting point is for making sure that the realtors are on board with this. And obviously there's still some work to be done on that brand guide.
Excuse me for just a
yes.
second. So the FAQs, I don't think we're counting on this task force to develop
That's
those.
correct. Staff is going to put the FAQ together based on a lot of things that will come up, especially as we're putting that website together. Oh, that's a question, that's a question.
So you can look at the other websites and see their.
Exactly. I've already printed off 20 of them so that I can start drawing lines between them. The fourth one tasks staff to develop a social media plan that, in line with the marketing website and the resident portal, will utilize the social platforms, will utilize the public social platforms for external marketing and a community-based platform on internal marketing. That will be a little clearer in a moment when we talk about social media. And then 5, rebrand everything with GRF and the MOD name using Rossmore Walnut Creek. I was going on the assumption that you were all gonna decide that today. You're welcome, I jumped ahead. But again, those were the 5 recommendations. If there's something missing or something that really should be added in, when we go to do that final report, again, this is sort of your jumping off point, but whatever we adopt in May, right now we're looking at these 5. If there's something missing, we should bring it up at the next meeting.
I may make a suggestion. If this is gonna be a comprehensive report given to the board, I would just add kind of as a footnote that previously the marketing website was already approved. I know it's an afterthought, it's already been approved, but I think this is a bulk report as a historical record that people are gonna look at. I would point them to that.
And adding to that, Deborah, I think the mission and vision and values are part of that report as well. Okay. All right, this is a great working outline. Thank you, Ann, because it starts to bring into focus where
Kind
we're.
of gets us focused.
Yeah, we know where we're going.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back. So we're at 9:30. Does everybody have another 15 minutes to devote to
10:30.
social media?
10:30.
Yeah, that clock is very confusing. And my eyes are not good, obviously.
10:30.
So, social media.
Social media, okay. Last share.
That's the fun part.
This one will be shorter, I promise. Okay, so last time our fellows walked us through 2 different ideas for social media, one being sort of a low engagement, the other one being a high engagement. These are, what I wanted to talk about is how I think we should use social media to our best advantage. And it starts by using public social media, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube as examples for external marketing. That means going after your prospective buyers and your adult children. These are just a couple examples of some senior communities who are doing that, who are trying to sell their community, right? It's about having quick little happy holiday messages or showing residents engaged in activities. It could be about special programs that you're rolling out when we have the new website, really kind of pushing out the new website. But that's all geared towards prospective residents. Whereas internally, Facebook, we would not be using that at all for our residents. If we're talking about events or new programs that are in Rossmore, we would use a community portal. And we've already selected one that's really good. We're already building it out. It's called Fluent Community. And what it allows you to do is designate different spaces for different areas of interest. So the departments could all have a different space. The clubs could all have a different space. The mutuals can all have a different space. And each of these spaces can be assigned out to moderators. So for example, First Mutual could say, we would like all of our board to be moderators on this space. We give them access through their email, it's theirs. They can set a private setting, so only First Mutual can come into that First Mutual space. And they can use that to post, again, events. When's our next meeting? What's going on with the board? The board president wants to give a report. It's their space to use as they want.
I have a question.
Yes.
This would live underneath
MyRossmore.com.
Rossmore.com.
It would be under myrossmore.com.
That's what I'm saying. It'd be a link
Yes.
outside to.
So this would only be accessible to the residents.
Yeah,
This would have a login. You log into myrossmore.com. You can be on the main site where you have your self-service features, or you can click a link that will take you into the portal. And again, that becomes your social media feed inside the gates. Yes, Tim?
You say would only be available to the residents as a visual or as a participant?
It again depends on how you decide you want to set it up. So it can, if you are a club, for example, and you want it to be full participation, you can make it full participation. If you're a department and you really just want to push the information out and you don't want engagement on that, you turn that off. And it just becomes like a bulletin board. Here's what's coming up. So we would control that.
There are two options.
There are
then.
two options.
Nice, nice.
And within that, there's actually 3 levels of what they call membership tiers. One would be public. So a department like recreation that's pushing out to all the residents, that stays public. Everyone gets to see it. The next level is private. Private would be, okay, we're a club and we only want our club members to see what's on our club page. So if you're a resident, you would come and you'd see a main page that would say, here's your information about, Partnership Bridge. You want to see the actual feed? Join us. Click a button, now you can join. One of the things that we're exploring is the possibility that clubs would even be able to pay their dues through this portal. Then the third option is called secret. So secret means that it is a much smaller group and it's by invitation only. So for example, say the club board wants to be able to talk to each other, to chat or post information. There are only those 5 or 6 people are on that particular space and it belongs to just them. So there's those 3 different
Is it
levels
called
within it.
So
secret or classified?
No, it's called secret.
Sensitive?
No, it's called secret.
So I'm a club and I have my own portal.
Mhm.
Do I get to choose whether I engage? Is it a push-pull or do you?
No, we don't decide. What would happen is, there's a lot of pieces that we still would have to work out. Again, once we figure out exactly what my Rossmore is going to look like, we would come back to the board and say, there's 2 or 3 different ways we could go.
Okay.
So one of the things we're looking at is we could set all of these club pages up. We could, if we wanted to, we had talked about this once before when we were looking at something similar called Highbright for my Rossmore, of potentially charging a small nominal fee to clubs in order to get that level, to get it all set up so that it meets the specifications for the club. And then we turn it over to the club. The club decides how they want to use it. Now, the one thing is, GRF, Rossmore, Walnut Creek, whatever we call ourselves, we will always have admin rights to be able to look in. So if a
Sure.
resident flags us and
Checks
says,
and balances. Yeah.
here's what's going on, it's breaking the law, we have the ability to shut it down.
And is
What
this
makes this
active?
Not, well, yes and no. It's on our staging.
Sort of like Dwelling Live?
It's on our
half live.
stage, it's on our staging site, it's being built out. We're building it out now because when we go live with My Rossmore, we want it to be ready. But again, there's some particulars of what we have to determine. Do we give this to the clubs for free? Or again, because there is a staff level involvement and time commitment to set each one of these up, we would allow, it might be $25 that the club pays to get all of that set up. There's particulars that have to be worked out.
And it's tied in with the database.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to see that in operation. 10 in the name.
So this is gonna be 2-part. It could be mutual or a club, on my question. So you have the board of the mutual board of the club in there. They're going to let in, however, golf has almost 700 members, so they let them in. But then you have members that are leaving. Who manages that?
So-
They get the person that they're
Right.
not following anymore.
So there's 2 ways that that's gonna work. Number 1, if they stop being a resident of Rossmore, NetSuite, through this bridge that's called Saligo, will send the information into Fluent Community and say, this person is no longer a member. They are immediately removed from the portal. They have no access to it. Where this won't be necessarily great for the clubs is if they want a non-resident to join, they will have to invite them and they will have to add them manually. That's the only way they can get a non-resident in. All of the residents will be able to immediately have access through My Rossmore. Like right now you go on, you log into My Rossmore, you see this space. This will live within that space. Once you log in, you're in. So again, you automatically get removed the minute that you leave Rossmore. But if a club decides to remove somebody because
Or they didn't renew
violated
their
rules
dues
or
the
whatever,
next year.
they didn't
Right,
renew their
right,
dues,
Yeah.
then the club would go in, there's a members list, and they just click a button and they're out.
So it's managed this will have to be managed by someone
Correct.
on the club board.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Or mutual.
or mutual.
Or the
Yes.
mutual.
So my question is, my time at the Rossmore Activities Council, we have large clubs that have created very robust websites. And we have small clubs that can't do that. So have we talked or thought about this portal? We're gonna have the smaller clubs saying, can I use this as my website? Because they don't have enough people to do that. I think there's gonna be some maybe confusion
Right.
on that.
So there's two things. Again, this is, I'll say up front, what we're talking about is, today is two different ways to handle social media. One, public on things like Facebook, Instagram, internal on something like this community portal.
Right, I'm
I'm not saying that this is a full, absolutely, we have all the particulars worked out, we haven't.
Okay.
What would end up happening, because again, a large group is never gonna wanna use this as their website.
No,
But they might want to create the page in here with a link that says, here's how you get to our
Correct.
website, right? And that's a very simple setup
Yes.
versus somebody who is a smaller club, because we hear this a lot,
we do.
a whole lot. In fact, I think Amy's the one who told me, you guys should look at this.
Yeah.
So that's when we started looking at it. They don't have the mechanism to collect dues. They don't have the mechanism to do a membership roster. They don't know how to communicate because they can't organize the emails without going out and getting something like MailChimp. That removes all of that. It puts it all in one place, but we have to build that out for them, right? So there's
Yes.
a time commitment involved with building
Correct.
that out. So the board would have to decide that is part of the service level that you get in your coupon, or that's an additional service.
Okay.
You're gonna have to pay a small fee to cover the staff.
Small club is gonna have to pay some,
Correct. But again, we're just talking conceptually right now.
Yes.
None of this has been rolled out. We are, like I said, building it out because there is gonna be a need. We already have a bulletin board in my Rossmore that has to be replaced. So if nothing else, this becomes the new bulletin board.
got it, okay.
A revenue generator. I'm
It
starting
could
to like
become a
this
revenue
now.
generator.
Given the brouhaha over the alcohol beverage issue and the charges the clubs have, if there's any way to make this free, that would be beneficial, because I think you're gonna get pushback if you charge them.
Again,
They'll only be charged if they want to use it. They're not going to be
But
charged
the
if
big
they don't.
clubs won't be.
well, everyone would get a page, right? That's actually done. The page is all created.
Right.
How far you decide to use that
Yeah.
would determine, it's the level of service that you then need on that page. So if you're just using that page to say, here's a link to our website, go. There's no charge. If you need us to go in and set up the payment portal to like a Stripe account or a PayPal account, if you need us to set up the membership roster, if you need us to set up the email database, there's a time commitment involved with this. It could be 30 minutes to an hour involved with this. Then again, that becomes the question. Is that part of the service level under your coupon? And I'll tell you right now, 2 people who can do the website on my staff are myself and Javier, and that's it. So what you would be talking about is bringing on an additional staff member. We would have to ask for an additional staff member to help with social media in particular as part of the budget.
So there's.
But it gets built into the coupon, right? So everybody pays for it. Versus, okay, no, maybe we don't want to go down that road. If you need that extra level, you pay the fee rather than making it. And now somebody who's on staff is able to manage that again a little bit, or again, we're bringing in somebody, we're figuring out, okay, we have X number of clubs who want to sign up. We bring in somebody temporarily to handle that
So
work.
I don't mean to interrupt
I
a
know.
wonderful discussion, but we're getting way in the weeds on something
Yes.
that's merely conceptual at this
Yes,
point.
merely
No,
conceptual.
but I think it's a great idea. I don't want to come across that. I thought it was bad. I think.
And
I just want, I want to bring this to a close
Yeah,
because
to
what we're
explain
just
the
talking.
process too, what would then happen, Ted, is once we make determination for what's gonna happen with my Rossmore, we will bring it to the planning committee. We'll explain, if the planning committee then recommends it, we bring it to finance to talk about what the financial costs would be. If they recommend it, it goes on to the board ultimately makes that decision.
But
And
if there's,
if the clubs went outside of Rossmore and hired somebody,
Yeah, be a lot
They'd
more.
be charged, they'd be
Yes.
charged.
They're gonna charge them, it just needs.
We are way in the weeds here, excuse me.
Not clarity
So
on what they're getting
all-
charged for.
Excuse me, all we're trying to do here is say, do we like this approach of saying externally, we will use social media platforms for a marketing purpose only, and we'll have some mechanism internally for social media with our residents.
Yes.
Do we agree with that approach?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we?
Excellent.
Yes, Lynn.
I just want to bring up the point that SEO searchability is something that we need to keep in mind, because if we put it behind a firewall, some of the lifestyle issues of selling, if it gets hidden and it's not searchable, and I think people will want to know, is there a pickleball club at, or is there golf at, and how do I see
Yeah, so
that?
that will still be a part of the marketing website. That doesn't go away. All we're talking about is the actual social media component, where you're talking about the specific event that's coming up and how to buy tickets,
Okay.
or the specific excursion and how to buy tickets. Yeah, that's what we mean by internal.
Because SEO, we haven't really discussed SEO, but I think it should be part of the objectives behind the
Yes,
pages.
yes, agreed.
Okay, so do we need a motion on this approach? We're just talking about
think
this
we're
maybe a
just- yeah, I
potential
mean,
recommendation.
This was just a follow-up to social media, and you know what they had talked about last time was, again, this low effort approach, the high effort approach. And after listening to it, especially Ted's comment about, well, couldn't they just go on and post anything? Yes, they could on Facebook, unless we decide that's not what we're using that for. We're not using that for engagement. We're strictly using that for marketing. And you keep the engagement part, again, more internally so that you can control it. Again, Facebook on the outside, former residents can come in and say whatever they want. Prospective residents who have a bad experience with a real estate agent can trash us. But again, if we're on Facebook and we've decided we're just using that for marketing, you turn off the comments. You don't need the engagement.
Okay, so we asked you to come back to us with timelines and staffing.
Yes, so that's the next slide. So if we were to do the low effort approach, and again, just a reminder, the low effort was to really just look at Facebook, where you're talking about 3 to 4 posts a week, and YouTube, where you're talking 1 to 2 videos a month. If we were to look at this approach, here's the challenges in terms of timeline, resources, and technology. So we would need one dedicated staff member, or we have one dedicated staff member right now who oversees our 3 main websites and is going to be highly involved with the development of both rossmore.com and my Rossmore. You are looking at a lengthy process for developing that marketing website and rebuilding the residence portal. From a timeline perspective, we're talking probably early next year, possibly late this year for the marketing, but for sure the residence portal is going to get pushed into the early part of next year to be built out the way we want it to be. Right now, we have very few existing YouTube videos that could work for marketing Rossmore. We do have part-time videographers as part of Rossmore TV, but those 3 part-time videographers share a 3/4 full-time position. So basically, we have 30 hours a week for the videographers to do everything. I've had some people say, well, can't we just walk away from Rossmore TV? Tell the 6,000 people who play bingo that we're walking away from TV, and you can come sit in my office when we get the phone calls for that. We also have some obligations like doing the board meeting. You want to be sure that you get those town halls. Those are our most viewed videos. We cannot walk away from those kinds of things. So again, if we were going to do this, we would need to have some more video hours in-house. The Rossmore News articles, it's really great to say, hey, we're just gonna share these on Facebook. So if you see in the corner, that's how it shares on Facebook. We selected a vendor for Rossmore News that was really about giving the residents that newspaper experience as an e-edition versus something that could be posted live to Facebook. I have a vision for where Rossmore News will go, where eventually we're going to use it more for a breaking news kind of perspective, being able to push stories out as they happen. But that is a longer term goal. So for right now, really what we're talking about is that low impact approach has to wait until after the websites are launched. We have to be able to focus on those.
Really makes sense. Yes.
Real quick question. The RPF for the webmaster?
Yes.
Would the webmaster be able to do this? Could it be that he has that 2 jobs and then take it off of you? You could be back
The
up.
social
rather-
media part, you mean?
The social media part along with the web building. Can
No,
they
so
do-
what we would be looking for is an actual marketing website
Yeah.
developer. I want somebody who's really focused on
Oh,
that.
so then we're
So-
looking at 2 different.
Yeah, and again, when we talk at the next meeting about the 3 different plans for myrossmore.com, depending on the avenue we go down, we may even need an RFP for myrossmore.com. I don't, again, it's one of the 3 scenarios. So all of that has to be worked out. If you wanted to build out a social media brand, you're talking a 3rd person that has to be brought in.
Yeah.
If we're looking at low impact, we don't need a 3rd person. We can do that. We just cannot do it right now. Both Javier and I really need to be able to focus on the build out for the 2 websites. That has to be the priority.
Well, I don't know, it's putting the cart before the horse by marketing on social media when we don't have the websites to back it up. Anybody disagree with that approach? There's no motion needed at this point in time. Okay. Anything else for the good of RWC marketing task force? Roy, a question, you have a clarification question.
Can we change the next meeting into this room instead of over there?
The answer to
It's
that
not
is
available.
no.
It's not available.
All right, any other comments? All right, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.